It's very beautiful. I was listening all the socialist countries anthem, but I think that after the Soviet Union, it is the second one.
You think so?
Yes. Okay, hello, comrades. Today we will speak with comrade from Germany, comrade Max. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
So this song which we heard, it is the anthem of the German Democratic Republic, and I can say that I 2-3 times by year I pass in Germany, and all the time when I pass Germany, I am listening the German socialist music a little too. So, firstly, could you present what is your organization? Because Comrade Max is from organization International Research Center DDR. What are you doing?
Yes, I can tell you a little bit of that. Firstly, I want to thank you for hosting us and inviting us to this little session. So, yeah, I'm working with the International Research Center DDR. We use the German abbreviation because actually the GDR is international-wise mostly known under the abbreviation of DDR. What we do is research and publish studies on the DDR for an international audience. So we look at specific fields of the society of the GDR and publish it in the aim of helping progressive movements worldwide to better understand German history and maybe also learn from it for their own fights that they are doing currently. So as an example, we just recently started with our first text that we published. It is called Risen from Ruins, which is Auferstanden aus Ruin, which also is the title of the GDR's anthem that we just listened to, where we give a short history of the economic development of the GDR. I invite everyone to read it and to give us feedback and to get a view on the GDR that is contrary to the official historical views on the GDR, not only in Germany but internationally. Right now we are working on our second text, which will cover the health system of the GDR, which is of course, under the current conditions of the corona pandemic that we're still fighting with, just really, really interesting to know how health system in East Germany worked. We hope that we can publish this in the end of July. And this is kind of what we do. So we cover certain fields of the society of GDR, especially the international solidarity of the GDR, which we can still learn a lot from today. I'm always amazed, actually, when I read and learn about the huge amount of solidarity projects that the GDR did, and for which it's well known until today worldwide, because this kind of internationalism is really rare right now in Germany, probably most areas around the world, and it's important that we can rebuild this kind of international connection that the GDR stood for. So this is also a specific field where we will publish some texts under the title of Friendship. That's the second series that we do. The first series is Studies on the DDR, and the second series is Friendships, where we analyze and present specific solidarity projects of the GDR. yeah, this is maybe a short introduction. I invite everyone to visit our homepage and look at our texts. We publish in different languages, of course, German and English, but also Hindi, for example, Spanish, which has the background that we work together with the Tricontinental Social Research Institute that helps us get our texts, get our publications around the world, because they're connected to all kind of progressive movements in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. So yeah, we're really thankful for this opportunity to make a different stance on GDR history from Germany. We have a little office in Berlin that we're working from. Maybe so far.
Okay, so I have first question to you, because I was born in Poland in the time of the socialism, but most of the history, the socialism in Poland, was destroyed in 1990s. So all the monuments which existed in Warsaw, the monuments of the Polish communists, the monuments of the worker solidarity, all this was destroyed, or the name of the street, the name of the places was changed. One thing which is for me very, very interesting, and something which give me hope, and I don't know, I feel very good, is when I am in Eastern Germany, I think that you don't have decommunization. In the street, you can find the Karl Marx Straße, Karl Liebknecht Straße, Rosa Luxemburg Straße. There are a lot of monuments of Karl Marx. In Chemnitz, we have the biggest monument, the Karl Marx in the world. And I think that there are also the cemeteries of the Red Army soldiers. And could you tell me what is the politic of the German capitalist states towards the Eastern Germany? Because in one hand, all the time I heard this anti-communist propaganda, the DDR, it was a police state, dictator, etc. But in second hand, the anti-communist propaganda which existed in Poland, in Ukraine, and other cities, where they physically destroyed all this history, socialism which were there, in Eastern Germany, they don't destroy. So,
well, actually, I don't know too much about the history of the 1990s of Poland. Maybe you can teach me some of that. But for Germany, I think it is still a really harsh anti-communist politics. So actually, you mentioned the city of Chemnitz, which they renamed after 1990 because it was called Karl Marx Stadt in the GDR. But you also have they rename all kinds of streets. They do such things, not all over, but they still do rename museums and streets and stuff like that. And they also destroy memorials, like the big Lenin statue in Berlin. They destroyed it. There was a huge protest, actually, of the people living there to keep the statue. So yeah, they have a principle harsh anti-communist policy, but they of course try to do it in a way to integrate also the East German population. It is I'm not quite sure. One had to study it more closely, but there is, I would argue, a kind of development in the last, 5 years, maybe, in the way the official state talks about the GDR, because they probably, under the circumstances of continuous capitalist crisis, have to be more careful on how to how to recall the GDR's history, because the people still remember about their social benefits and so on. So they kind of changed the line, not to say everything was just evil, but there was something good also. And but all in all, of course, the dictatorship and against the people, state police, and so on, so on. So it's still a harsh anti-communist propaganda. And also, one has to remember that that they also juridically there were lots of processes against leaders of the GDR's government and so on. So it was a kind of anti-communism that we knew probably from the early beginnings of the Cold War in the 50s, that came back in the 90s also in Germany.
Okay, so I would like to say that I discovered the German Democratic Republic recently, because when I started to make my communist activity in Poland, one of the most important anti-communist argument against socialism, it is that socialism didn't work. That socialism, it is the shortage of everything. That in shop there are it's empties and people are starving and stuff like this. And recently, when I started to make my studies about the history of the German Democratic Republic, I discovered that all the things which existed in Poland in 1980s, when we compared this with the Eastern Germany, that the DDR was better. And DDR was better because it was true socialism for me. For example, the question of the agriculture. In DDR, the collectivization was finished. In Poland, they stopped collectivization. More than 70% of the Polish agriculture was in the private hand. So I use this example to show that if it was something bad in Polish economy, it is not thought of this. It is not against socialism, it is against capitalism, because it's shown that Poland was the state which have all the time this capitalism in agriculture, and because of capitalism in agriculture, because of black market in when the farmers are wanted to sell the meat and other things from agriculture, not officially but in the black market. It is the reason of all this shortage. So it is in this reason it is the best countries in the socialist bloc.
Well, it for sure was one of the most developed countries. I think it was in the end, it is always in the range of, I don't know, like the under the 15th most developed countries of all countries in the world, which were which already shows that the GDR had a good functioning economy, of course. And yeah, this argument still appears in Germany, though. It's the argument of a not working economy and so on still also exists, and that the GDR had great debt problems in the end. So this is also an argument that is brought up here, and it is obviously simple propaganda, I'd say, because one could easily see that in the 40 years of existence of the GDR, there was a huge development in the economy. One has to understand that after the Second World War, of course, there was a huge devastation in the German cities, where the big cities were huge ruins, and the industry was, of course, destroyed in many fields. And yeah, concerning the industrial development, one has always, and this is something that I learned concerning the GDR, always look closely into the historical context which is happening. So because what one cannot forget the embargo politics, the Cold War politics of the Western countries. One has to understand that that East Germany, the GDR, was at the sharp border between the two systems, the system confrontation, always with the fear of a great war starting. So all this one has to understand to really analyze the development of East German economy. But I would, of course, also argue that the GDR, in contrast, actually is a good example for the functioning of socialism in principle, of course. Yeah, what you mentioned about agriculture actually might be an interesting field for us also to get into, because you're right, the quota of the state was quite high, not only in agriculture but also in all kinds of fields of the industry in the GDR, and it increased, I think, in the 80s almost into the 90% state ownerships in all fields of industry. In the agriculture business, in the agriculture industry, of course, it was cooperatives. So one could still discuss the different forms of property ownership. It still is not state owned, but it's owned by a cooperative. So this, I think, is still one step away from a socialist property system. Yeah, what else? I think, yeah.
Do you know Professor Richard Wolff?
No, I don't.
He is famous Marxist from USA. He is very active in the YouTube. So I thought that everybody know him because I am listening him every week. His mother was German, and his father was French, but he was born in like an immigrant in the United States. Now he is old, but when he was very young, his native language was German, and he know also the economic history of Germany. Very often he participate in the debate socialism against capitalism, and always somebody who defend the capitalism and attacked socialism use argument that capitalism is better system because the Western Germany was how to say, more developed than Eastern Germany. And Professor Wolff always explained that this difference between East and West Germany, it is not a difference which started in 1945, but it is difference which was from Mayan ages, that always this region, the Western Germany, was more developed, and the capitalism in Germany started there, not here. That in the German state before Second World War, the eastern part of the Germany was backward, and it is something like the regional province of this capitalism in Western countries. And in this, when we know economic history of the capitalism in Germany, now we see that this difference between East and West, when the German socialists starting to build, was not growing, but was small and small, because the development of the DDR, I think, was fastest than that capitalism in Western countries. And we have to remember then the capitalism in Western countries have they have taken the gold which was stolen by the Nazis. It's true or not?
Not only that. I think it's a good point. Definitely, the one has to understand that the Germany was, of course, one united economic system until 1945. So the lines between the different industries and so on were cut. So the GDR had to, for example, had huge problems getting enough natural resources. The energy resources had to stick with the brown coal, for example, that they had in the GDR, but was not able to use its usually and over decades developed connections to the Western Germany industries. And also, of course, there were such things as the Marshall Plan in the West, which pushed the economic development of West Germany. And in contrast, the GDR paid, I think, 95% of the reparations of the Second World War to the Soviet Union. So this was, from the beginning, really a different starting point for the GDR. And still, they managed to build a highly functional and developed economy. And one also has to ask, actually, for whom was the Western economy really the developed one? Because the level of equally, like the equal living conditions in the GDR were much higher than in the West, where you still had some people, the capitalists, that actually were the ones who also benefited the fascist war, were still the ones benefiting from the work of the Western working class. So I think this shows the different approach of the GDR.
Could you say something about the relations between DDR and the poor countries from Africa and all these third world countries?
Well, we are on our way studying this field and looking into specific projects. One has to say that it is a totally different approach that the GDR had in its so-called foreign affairs. I would say it's internationalism than what the capital we know from capitalist countries, which they often refer to as development help or something like that. It was a relationship that the GDR built that was on I would say same eye level. I think you can argue. So it was not a relationship to profit from the work or the resources of a different country, but always with the aim to help them build their own society and economy, because the GDR knew that this was the best fundament for a long-lasting and relationship built on solidarity. So the approach that the GDR had international-wise was, of course, built on the Marxist-Leninist approach of internationalism. So that there is no, it was not fueled by a competitive grounding that is systematically burned into the DNA of the capitalist society. So they were able to really create relations on the same eye level, and of course also helped different movements, groups, and states than the capitalists support. For example, when they support groups, it's usually right-wing coup, military coup groups or whatsoever, and not the not the movement of national independence that the GDR supported throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, which is really remarkable because this relationship was, I think, it's a important field to study and understand also the evolvement of socialism in all, the connection and the power that grew from this internationalism.
I would like to say that in this channel, very often there are the lectures of Professor Bruno Drwęski. He is the son of the Polish emigrant, and he was born in Canada, but in 1970s he studied in Poland, and he was the communist who was the member of the Polish United Workers' Party. And it is something very, very rare because most of these people in this party are not communist. He was communist, and in the time of when he make his studies, he was responsible for the contact with the foreign students from which are made study in Poland. So he knew very well the attitude of the Polish leaders towards the internationalism, and he is very often he said that it was not good that Polish leaders in the private conversations they said, we waste the money, it's not good to have the contact with the African countries, and that it was the big difference in the official discourse that Poland is socialist country which support internationalism relations and socialist countries, and the reality that Poland, also the leaders of Poland, they are a little racist. They didn't want the waste of money to help the other countries. So this example of the solidarity which have DDR with these countries are very, very good when we compare this with Poland, because Poland was catastrophe in this field.
Yeah, I have to learn more about the international affairs of the socialist Poland, I guess, because I don't know much, and it is an interesting field to look at the way the socialist countries in Europe and Asia handled this kind of internationalism, and how they and why they handled it differently. Still something we have to study, I think. Yeah, but also one has to say that, of course, also the potential of solidarity from the GDR was limited to some point. They also had to make realistic approaches they had to fulfill all kinds of needs for the development of their own economy, of course. But it is, as I said, a really remarkable field. And for example, which we are starting to cover in the next months, I think, a hospital that the GDR built in Managua in Nicaragua, the Hospital Carlos Marx, to support the Nicaraguan people, which was a solidarity project that in the 1990s, when after the counter-revolution and the Federal Republic of Germany took over, they said something like, "Oh my God, this is so much money they are putting in there. None of our international projects have anything closely to this capacity." So it sees that there's so it can be seen that this is a really remarkable field for the GDR.
Okay, could you say something about the leftist and communist organization in Germany? Are you a member of organization like this, or you only make this activity in the history field?
Well, before I say something about that, I want to make clear that the International Research Center DDR, where I work, is not a party or not a political organization, but a research organization. So it is important for us to really work across all borders and lines of organizations, especially in Germany, maybe, I don't know, because the former representatives, people, just former normal people also, population of the GDR, of course, is in all kinds of organizations, not organized at all whatsoever, and we need to integrate their experiences and knowledge. But maybe I can give you like at least a short overview about the communist movement in Germany. If you want to understand the point where the communist movement is today, one really has to understand its history, of course, with all things, but with the communist movement, it is the same. And I just want to make it, I'll make it really short, but you can probably better understand.
Don't have to hurry. I am interested of the history. All my activity here, it is history of communist movement. So I want to profit this situation that you can say something about the history of the communist movement in Germany.
Okay, I will start at the point after the Second World War, where of course we already have the separation of the Soviet area, the American sector, the British and the French sector. So you have different political developments in the East and in the West already, and before the foundation of the GDR and the Federal Republic. So in 1946, you have the unification of the SPD and the KPD, so the Social Democrats and the Communist Party, that unified in the Eastern sector, the Soviet sector, in 1946, and formed the SED, so the Socialist Unification Party of Germany, which was the main party of the GDR. And in Western Germany, you had in 1956 the ban of the KPD, the Communist Party. So they had to, and you did not have the unification process, first of all, because the Western SPD was strongly against a unified party with the communists. You had a different situation in the East, mostly because also of different leaders of the SPD, because the party base had the experiences in the anti-fascist resistance, where they fought hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, between social democrats and communists and progressive people besides that. So there was a good foundation of the unification, but it did not work in the West. Instead, the KPD still remained an own party, which was then banned in 1956 and worked illegally until 1968, where the DKP, the German Communist Party, was founded as and in the tradition of the KPD. Of course, you had much more kinds of organizations that called themselves communists, as in every other part of the world. You had the separation with the lots of Maoist groups and so on, but I won't go deeper into that, because we are mostly interested, of course, in the organizations that are were always and have always been in a solidarity standpoint with the socialist countries and developments. So yeah, you have the DKP that is founded in 1968, and of course in 1990, after the counter-revolution, you have a new situation. You have the SED that is renamed itself and gave itself a new program and called itself the PDS, the Party of Democratic Socialists, which was founded and obviously had its biggest influence in the area of the former GDR. And the DKP, so the Western communists, also left the area of the former GDR mostly to the PDS. So they did not try too much to really grow their own groups and bases in the field of the former GDR. You also had a revolutionary fraction, I would call that, from the SED that formed the KPD, which was allowed actually to form in 1990 under the contracts of the 2+4 contracts. I don't know the wording, the exact, but they have something in it like all organizations of the former GDR are legally integrated into the federal system. So they were able to found a KPD again in 1990, which is still a party that exists until today. And the PDS, that is the main line that came from the SED, of course, is now known as the Linkspartei, the left party. They formed, it was formed, the left party in 2007, so not too long ago, 14 years ago, with a left fraction from the Social Democratic Party, SPD. They unified into the left party. I don't know if that was helpful yet, but the DKP still exists. Of course, it is also the number-wise the biggest communist party in Germany. The Linkspartei is, I'd say, obviously made the move to a social democratic party and left its traditions of a communist party. Sadly, the Linkspartei, especially the leaders of the Linkspartei, there's a difference between the base and the leaders also, but the leaders of the Linkspartei take part in the anti-communists propaganda against the GDR.
But wait, Linkspartei, it is Die Linke?
Yes.
Okay.
And maybe one other thing, in 2018, there was a small fraction from the DKP that formed the Kommunistische Organisation, communist organization, it calls itself, with the aim to organize a process of communist clarification. Because all in all, there is still, I would characterize it as it is a crisis in the communist movement in Germany, of course. It is fragmented in all kinds of organization and all in all weak, and it has many difficult political obstacles to take. But this is, of course, nothing specific for Germany, but also for the communist movement international-wise, I'd say.
And why the KPD and DKP are not united?
You're asking me difficult questions here. It would be fields of detailed study. Well, I would say that it has to do with the strategic approach of the DKP in contrast to the one of the KPD, and also mainly, and probably this is the main factor, their relationship to the development in the Soviet Union after the 20th Congress of the party from 56, where the DKP is influenced, at least I would say, with the anti-Stalinist stance that probably took all over the communist movement. The KPD has a more critical view, I'd say, on the developments under Khrushchev and anti-Stalinist approaches.
1 year ago, I was in Gelsenkirchen, and
And
I
you
was
visited the Lenin statue.
yes, of course, and I also speak with the people, the comrades from MLPD. I wanted to know a little about this organization. So, what is your approach to MLPD? What do you think about them?
Well, I probably have to repeat myself again that the research center
Okay.
is not. We don't have a approach to any of these organizations or parties. We are a research organization, so we are happy that for everyone that wants to cooperate and work with us, that have have the same aim to write realistic and authentic history of the GDR. The MLPD, it was formed in I think the beginning of the 80s, 1982 or something. It is was funded with a Maoist approach, and actually they have they don't see the GDR as a socialist state, and they actually affirm the developments in the 1990s. They refer to it as positive developments, the end of socialism. So I think there is not too big of a common ground to work on the history on the GDR. But this is my opinion on that.
Okay, I would like to say that I am the member of the Polish Workers' Party. It is a very small communist party in Poland, which tried to be a little bigger. So we made political activities, but also one of the most important of our activities is the fight for the history of because the most important ideologic fight with the right, with the bourgeoisie, it is fight about history, about what is socialism and stuff like this. And do you think that there are a possibility to cooperate in the history of the socialist countries, and how we can, because I am located in France, but many of our comrades are in this Lower Silesia. It is Wrocław, and it is I don't know, 2 hours in car to Görlitz. It's very it's this distance from Wrocław to Görlitz is smaller than from Wrocław to Warsaw. And
before I answer this, maybe you can help me with a question. What is your connections as Polish Workers' Party with the Communist Party of Poland, or do you have? Why are there two different organizations?
It is, I think, the similar question which I already asked about DKP and KPD. Most of the people who created Communist Party of Poland was ex-members of the Polish United Workers' Party. Firstly, it was in the 1990s was other organization which was known Związek Komunistów Polskich Proletariat. It existed in 1990s. It was Union of Polish Communist Proletariat, and in 2002 it was split for two organizations. One, it was Polska Socjalistyczna Partia Robotnicza, and second, Communist Party of Poland. It was split. I don't know why, but now this other organization don't exist. It's only Communist Party of Poland. And in the 2002, it was my massive party. This party, which was created in 1990s, was very huge. It is the 30,000 of people who signed that they want to continue the socialist activity in the political party, because the Polish United Workers' Party was 3 million people. So when they voted that they want to close the party, 1% of this party said no, but 1% of 3 million, it is 30,000 or something like this. So it was, in the beginning, it was very, very huge organization, but these people very often are remember the Second World War. There are the combatants of the communist movement, and of course with the time and also with the counter-revolution, which was very, very harsh to the older people, they started to be smaller and smaller. And in 2002, when I was in Warsaw, I tried to collaborate with Communist Party of Poland. I was in the meeting of this party, and but after when I emigrated, the new leadership of this party, it's changed. It is now the new leadership. And I think that since 2010, this party in Poland are not very active. Not very active. They do nothing. So it's very complicated to find the activity of the Communist Party of Poland. But the most important, it is not it is party active or not. I considered the possibility to join to this party. Join to this party because, of course, it is party which is legalized, and it is stupid to create new party when is already one party exists. But they have a statute, very bureaucratic, that if you want to be a member of this party, you have to make your declaration, you have to wait 6 months, and after 6 months, you are not... in the first 6 months, you are the candidate for the member. After 6 months, you are the observer of the party, but you don't have... you are not a true member, so you can be a true member of the party after 1 year. And me and my comrades, which are very, very, not very young, but I don't know, 20 years, we don't want to waste our time 1 year to be a member, true member of Communist Party of Poland. Because why they made this statute? It is not because they made this statute against us. They don't want that we be a member of this party, and in the democratic election we take a power in this party. Because it's... I am for the democracy. I can be a member of the Communist Party tomorrow, and after tomorrow we will make a meeting, election, and the Communist Party will be our party. But they didn't want it, so we need to create other party. And the Polish Workers' Party, it is the name of the party which existed in the time of the Second World War. So they take the historic name of the party which existed in the capitalist Poland before war. So we take the historic name of also. And the comrade Stalin, who decided the name of this party, he said that the Communist Party in Poland don't have to use the word communist, because Polish people hate communism. So it's Stalin who decided that the better is Polish Workers' Party. So we are not use this word in the name of our party, but of course our strategy and the people who create this party, we are communist. So of course I am welcome to collaborate with the people from Communist Party of Poland. But it's now it's too late. Now we started to create new party. We will have our congress in this soon, and now we finish the discussion about unification. They don't want us, so we try to build something other. And of course, I use this possibility that the media which I created, so this channel, but the most important is the Polish language channel, Odrodzenie Komunizmu. It is the biggest leftist medium in Poland, not the communist medium, but the leftist, because the left in Poland, social democratic left, totally they forget it about the YouTube. They don't make all this stuff. We produce the audiobooks, lectures about the history, and many things. So Odrodzenie Komunizmu, it is something that if you speak with the leftists in Poland, everybody know what is Odrodzenie Komunizmu. So of course, the people who are communist and they watched our media, it is maybe 5%. The most of them are other leftists, or which are not communist, or the anti-communists who also watch our media. But it is popular, and the idea of creation party, it is they use this popular media to make other step, because in the tradition of we are Marxist-Leninist, and if you are Leninist, you are always thinking about the creation party and changing the system, not only criticize the system, but also to, it is 11 These of Feuerbach, so the philosopher, you understand.
Yes. Es kommt darauf an, die Welt zu verändern. Die Philosophen haben sie nur verschieden interpretiert.
Da, yeah.
All right. Yeah, thanks a lot for this short overview. I think I'm really interested in also in the communist movement, of course, of Poland, because it is I live in Berlin, and it is you are my neighbors, my political neighbors, and I have to study your movement more and more. But concerning your question that you raised before on cooperating on the study of the socialist history, and I totally agree with you. And I think this interview might be a good start for us, for the research center, and maybe you and your media to further think about cooperations. We also could maybe think about to sometimes ask ourselves in our study, how did socialist Poland do things? And
I have one idea of collaboration, that there is one person which unites the history of the communist movement in Poland and in Germany. It is Rosa Luxemburg. And one of the most important activity in Berlin, I think, it is the demonstration in 15th of January in Berlin. And I want to remind that Rosa Luxemburg was born in Zamość in Poland, and in the building where she was born existed the monument about her. But 2 years ago, they destroyed this monument. And I think that the leftists from all over the world, but especially from Germany, need to have made a pressure to Polish government, and also you can go to Zamość. It's not very far. So one time we can go together to Zamość and to the house of the Rosa Luxemburg and demand reopen the museum which was there and build the monument which was there. Now they want to destroy the history of the socialism in Poland, but this law which existed in Poland, it is the law that the socialism is criminal after 1944. But Rosa Luxemburg, when they tried to destroy the history about Rosa Luxemburg, it is against this law, because Rosa Luxemburg didn't participating in the creation of socialism in Poland. She died in 1919. So when they destroyed the history of Rosa Luxemburg, it is against the Polish law, because this Polish law is against the people like Bierut, Hilary Minc, people from the Urząd Bezpieczeństwa, all these people who fighting for the socialist revolution after Second World War, because in Poland we have all these terrorist activities of the anti-communism in the forest. They attacked. So we had a civil war in Poland, brutal. But it was after Second World War, and they created that now the socialists are murderers. But it's not about Rosa Luxemburg. Rosa Luxemburg didn't kill anybody. So
it's a good point. Yeah, it's a good starting point maybe for cooperation, because of course Rosa Luxemburg played a huge role in the German communist movement, in the foundation of the KPD in 1980. It was 31st December 1990 that the KPD was founded. But of course, she could not play a role for the GDR because she was murdered, as you said, in 1990. Yeah, but still, of course, a good point for cooperation. I agree.
Yes, but there are other things important. For example, this is not maybe the German question, but one of the most important activity of the Polish anti-communists is destroying of the monuments and the cemeteries of the Red Army soldiers in Poland. There are I forget it that why. I forget it about anniversary that next weekend, next week, 22 of June, we will have the anniversary of the war. The attack, the third right German Nazi attacks against the Soviet Union. Do you organize something to commemorate?
Well, as a research center, we will probably do a short publication on this matter or something like that. But it's not our role to organize bigger events. There are several events in Germany that take place, several local events. The DKP hosts a central event in Berlin, also in Treptower Park at the Soviet War Memorial on the 19th of June. And so there will be several events from the communist movements, but that's it. The official German government won't do anything, actually. This is also remarkable, because it is the 80th anniversary, and of course it would be a duty for any German state to commemorate the fascist attack, but they won't do anything, actually. And this is even less than 5 years ago, where they at least had some debate or something in the Bundestag, but nothing at all. Besides what they always do on these dates to fuel the historical revisionism and anti-communism. The main theme under which they do this is the thesis of totalitarianism, which plays an important role for the the official remembrance of the German government. So this is what I expect, I guess. It is also, maybe you know about that for sure. It's the EU already did something like that 2019 with their declaration on the Ribbentrop-Molotov non-aggression agreement, where they
The day of anti-communism.
yeah where they made the Soviet Union responsible for the Second World War, and made the committer and the victim of a crime, turned them around. So this is the way the EU and also the German government is handling these historical events.
I know that you are the center of research and you don't want to speak about politics, but I want to ask you a question which I think is very important, because I am afraid, I'm scared that the Polish country are trying to prepare the aggression against the Russia, against Belarus. 1 month ago, there was, in the time of the crisis in the border Ukraine-Russia, there were 70 warplane which came to Poland 1 day. It was the plane from the American planes, but all these eastern countries for NATO, Baltic states, Poland, also Romania, there are very strong anti-Russian propaganda, and also it is very strong militarization. We are obliged, our countries are obliged to buy the weapons, especially from United States. So they make all the time this propaganda: Russian is bad, we need to make sanction, we need to destroy something, I don't know, the dictator in Belarus. And for me, it is the war propaganda. Do you think that, do you agree with my analysis? And if yes, do you do something against war, which NATO won't prepared?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. This is an aggression that is coming from NATO and the EU, from the Western imperialists against Russia. And we probably have quite the same propaganda and lies in our German media and official politics that you also have. It is it's full of news and coverage around Alexei Navalny and the annexation of the Crimea and so on, against the pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine and so on. So you have you definitely have this kind of propaganda that fuels into even an increasing aggression against Russia. And of course, super cynical double standards that they have when you just look at the military coup in Bolivia, or the coups in the supporting of Guaido in Venezuela, or the prosecution of journalists like Assange or persons like Snowden or something. So it is easily it can easily be seen that they don't have any like humanitarian or progressive.
Arabia Saudite or Israel.
Yeah, same thing. So they fuel this aggression, and it is interesting actually to look more closely into German politics and the stance they have concerning Russia, because it is different than the US standpoint, because Germany does have a closer economic tie to the Russian economy. So you still have, it decreases, but you still have some points that rather some people that stand for a more cooperative relation to Russia. But more and more you have politicians that demand more aggressive acts, more sanctions, and so on. And especially the Green Party in Germany, they have an especially aggressive stance on this matter. And the CDU does not have a much lesser aggressive stance, but the Green Party sticks out a little bit. And this is interesting because the Green Party played an important role also after the annexation of the GDR, as I would call it.
Anschluss.
Anschluss.
No.
Because they were the ones putting forward the war on orientation of Germany again. They were the ones. Joschka Fischer was the foreign minister of Germany and member of the Green Party, who was an important figure to normalize the aggressive war actions coming from Germany in the Kosovo War in 1998. And he actually argumented this involvement in the war with his. He argumented as an anti-fascist move because after Auschwitz, Germany had a responsibility to fight all evil in the world, and what is evil and what not. Of course, they decide, and this. We can be sure that it is not to be not true or not safe. So this is pretty much what the Green Party still does today, and they actually the leader of the party, Robert Habeck, recently demanded the delivery of weapons to the Western Ukrainian governments, and so they have a quite aggressive standpoint on this. But still, because you started with it, if it is one has to make a differentiation between the attack of the Nazi fascist 80 years ago to what the aggression against Russia is today. There's, first of all, of course, there's continuity, because and this is, I think, the most important thing also, because we as Marxists understand fascism as a form of rule of capitalism. It was the interests of the German capital that fueled the war, and the interests in the Lebensraum, the living space, the settlers' colonialism that the German fascists fought for. This is pretty much the same stance that the German imperialism has since the 19th century, with the so-called Drang nach Osten, the drive to the east, and which they have realized with the EU pretty much, because Germany, of course, is the hegemonial power of the EU and has now all the area of the shared market in its influence. So this kind of capital interests is the continuity, which is really important to understand, that this is the same that is now fueling the aggression against Russia. But of course, it is a different situation in that way, that it's not a socialist state that they confrontate, but a capitalist state. So it is an inner imperialist situation that they have. And it is even more difficult, I think, for communists to evolve a progressive activity that aims to fight the root of this confrontation, because every action against the war aggression and against the militarization of the NATO countries, we have to aim and combine it with an anti-capitalist stance, because otherwise it will repeat itself over and over and over again, as it did at least since the First World War, I think.
Do you know why the Social Democrats and the Green parties in Poland, in Germany, and the other countries of the European Union are one of the most aggressive in this rhetoric against Russia?
Well, as I said, actually it is the SPD that has some members, at least, that stand on a more cooperative position, to Russia. Gerhard Schröder, you probably remember him. He was the chancellor from 1998 to 2005 in Germany. He has now close ties also to the Russian industry and always stood for a more cooperative position towards Russia. Whereas Angela Merkel, the CDU, from the start had a more aggressive point. Not totally, because, for example, which is one of the biggest debates also between Germany and the US, the Nord Stream 2 project, the gas pipeline from Russia to northern Germany, is a project that is supported by the German capital and the CDU, not by the Green Party. They actually, it's one of their demands that they that they go into the election for, that they will stop this project. I don't know. Well, I would say they do have they do represent different strategies in the relation with Russia, and there is different strategies in the German capitalists class, in the bourgeois class. They have different interests. There's some that have more interests in a cooperative relation to Russia, and there are others that stand for the Atlantic cooperation and a more aggressive action against Russia. But I don't know. One had to look more closely into that, I guess.
Yes, I think that it is because of corruption that most of the social democrats, especially in Poland, they are financed directly by the NGOs from United States or the Western Europe, and in the internal politics, sometimes they have good position again when they criticize the neoliberalism or stuff like this, but when they starting to talking about the foreign policy, about the countries like Belarus or Russia, they starting to repeat all this imperialist propaganda. So, okay, comrade, thank you for your time. It was. I hope that our small conversation today will start to be something of collaboration. This collaboration which existed 100 years ago in the time of the Rosa Luxemburg, but also many others Poles like Marcin Kasprzak. I don't know if you know him, or I don't know, Julian Marchlewski, and many people, Polish socialists, which are active in the socialist communist movement in Germany. Mm-hmm. So many years ago, or in the time of the civil war in Spain, also there was the militants, volunteers from Poland, volunteers from Germany who fight the fascism in Spain. But now this collaboration don't exist because Polish communist movement don't exist. But we try to rebuild the Polish communist movement, and of course it's very important to us to have the close ties and collaboration with the Marxists from the Eastern Europe, like Eastern Germany, Czech Republic, Belarus, Ukraine, Russia.
I totally agree with you. Thanks a lot for inviting us, and I hope we can continue this kind of collaboration.
Okay, thank you. I will finish.